Professor Dr. Lau. It is actually my honor, to be here to share what I know about compassionate pedagogy to all of you. And in fact, this is a very new niche to me. I find it very interesting. And then what is actually resonance to me a lot is because my area of expertise is actually more to human-centered higher education ecosystem. So previously, I actually actively involved in social emotional learning. And then compassionate pedagogy is just right another niche where it is so useful for lecturers or academics in higher education. And it is not only particularly to tertiary education, but also to secondary school or even primary school or even preschool. Yeah, that is something that we can do about that. All right, so without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. First of all, can you see my screen in full screen mode?
Yes, Dr. Teoh, we can see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Low. All right. So good morning once again. Thank you very much for joining me today. So my name is TS Dr. Teoh Kok Ban from the National Higher Education Research Institute, or we name it as IPPTN, Universiti Sains Malaysia. So today I will be talking about compassionate pedagogy, particularly how we can use it to support autistic and neurodivergent students in higher education. So since this seminar series has already introduced earlier, so about autism, about neurodiversity, detection, and related area. So I'm not going to spend much time explaining what autism is. So instead, I would like to move the conversation one step further. So we know that our students are different. So we come from different background, different places, and yet we are different in a lot of way, and we know that they may learn or communicate and experience university differently. And then a lot of time, me as a lecturer as well as to my colleague, our question towards our student is, what do we do with that understanding? Since we know that they are different, so what we actually do with that differences? So how should that differences change the way we teach? Okay, and then that is what I would like to explore together today, right? So, and I want to make today's sessions very practical. So we will talk about care, but also clarity. Then we will talk about flexibility, but also academic standards. So, and most importantly, we will look at how small changes in our teaching can make learning more accessible without making it less challenging. All right, so let me move to the second slide. All right. So how do we respond when students learn differently? Okay. So that is something that we can learn and think together today. So the first thing is, how do we respond when students learn differently? And the second question is, how do we maintain academic standard without creating unnecessary barrier? And the third one is, how can we become part of serious university teaching? So we are still, most of the time when we talk about compassionate teaching or pedagogy, a lot of people thought that we need to let go of this strictness, we need to let go of this academic standards. No, the seriousness is still here, but how can we actually uh, play the role as a part of this serious university teaching? So I think the third question is really, really important. Sometimes we will use words such as compassion, care, or kindness in higher education. But people may think that we are talking about being soft. So maybe giving students easier work, we might think in that way, or maybe we giving everybody an extensions, or maybe we reduce academic expectation. But that is not what I meant by compassionate pedagogy. So in fact, compassionate pedagogy is still serious teaching. So students need to learn. They still need to learn to achieve the learning outcome. So as lecturer, we are very particular with learning outcomes, and they still need to demonstrate what they know and what they can actually do. And they still need to uh, show us, regarding what they have felt over the learning through the progress. So what changes is the way we create the conditions for them to achieve those outcome. So the outcome, or I would say the goal, are still there, but the pathway towards the goals, it can be very creative. So the aim is actually quite simple over here. So reduce unnecessary barrier so that students can meet meaningful challenges. So what we can do is we can identify the barrier and reduce them so that our students with different learning needs, they can meet the challenges meaningfully. So, and that is where compassionate pedagogy begins. All right. So, what exactly do I mean by compassionate pedagogy? So, for today's sessions, I want to keep the definition very simple. Compassionate pedagogy is the intentional practice of recognizing barrier, the words recognizing barriers to learning and taking thoughtful actions here to help students learn and flourish. So over here, I would say the two important parts. So the first part is actually recognizing. So we need to notice what might be making learning unnecessarily difficult. So we need to identify, recognize the barrier. And the second one, of course, we need to take action. So compassionate is not about feeling sorry for someone. So it actually requires us to do something about it. So on the left side, as you can see over here, you can see what compassionate is not about. It is not about being pity. It's not about easy grading. It's not about lowering expectations. And it is certainly not ignoring academic standard. So on the other side, as you can see on the right-hand side, so what you can see is actually we notice about barriers. And then we try to understand before we judge. We design learning with care, and ultimately, we try to create conditions where students can flourish. So for me, compassionate pedagogy begins to gather three things as we can see over here: professional care, pedagogical design, and also academic seriousness. So all three are equally important. So if we have care without academic standard, then that is not enough for our students, our kids. So if we have academic standard without care, that can also create unnecessary harm. Yeah, because we have the standard imposed on our students, but we do not have actually any alternative to actually help them to pursue what we actually impose on them. Then it could be harmful to the student. So the question is how we bring these two together, professional care onto academic seriousness. So how we make these two things happen together. So that comes in pedagogical design. All right. So this is probably one of the most, I would think, most important messages that I would like to emphasize today. So if let's say today you might not remember what we have actually gone through, but this is actually the most important part that I wish everyone can remember. So compassion is not lowering down standard. It's not lowering standards. We have to remember that. So I think we need to say this very clearly because this is often one of the I would say concerns of educator. So because most of the time, a lot of I would say academics or educators, they might get it wrong. They thought that compassion means being kind. So when you're being kind, that means we try to tolerate, and then there we go. We actually try to lower down academic standard, like what I mentioned, giving extensions, this and that. And then at the end of the day, yes, maybe we're being very kind, but still our students are not learning towards the we call learning outcomes, or they might not really possess what we actually expect them to have at the end of their graduations, right? So first of all, that is what I want to mention, is that it is actually not lowering the academic standard. So for example, if I become more flexible, okay, if I become more flexible in terms of my teaching, guiding, supervising, so the first question is, am I lowering down my academic standard? Not necessary, isn't it? If I'm being flexible, that does not mean that my standard also being flexible in that sense, isn't it? So if let's say if I give additional support to my students, so is that unfair? a lot of people will think that, you give less support to these students, but you give more support or concentrations on other students. So is it considered unfair? Yeah. So, or maybe if students have different ways to participate, maybe the way they learn, the way they participate, are we making university too easy? That means, oh, if you are good with that, then I have this channel with you. So all this are actually, I would say, a lots of different perspectives. They will have different debates. They will have different arguments on it. But what I will say, based on my experience, it is not necessarily. So look at the simple formula over that we have here. So we will still have high expectations on our students, but we combine those expectations with appropriate support. The appropriate support, that means the pathway to achieve the goals, to achieve the high expectation. And we try to remove unnecessary barrier. That means we try to reduce what stops the kids from achieving those expectations. So that combination is what I'm calling compassionate pedagogy. In fact, it has its own framework. It has its own philosophy. But today we are more to practical and we try to understand compassionate pedagogy in a simple way. Then I will mention, I will treat it as, when we want to achieve expectation, but we supply appropriate support while reducing unnecessary barrier. So let me give you a simple example. So for example, imagine a student needs to climb a staircase to reach the second floor. So the learning outcome is actually reaching the second floor. So the staircase itself, uh, is not necessarily the learning outcome. Yeah. So if there's another appropriate way for the student to reach the same destination, we have not lowered the destination. So we have simply changed the pathway. So the same principle applies in our teaching. So the goal is not remove challenge. The goal is actually remove obstacle that have nothing to do with the actual learning we want students to demonstrate. So that is the simple idea that students are still reaching their destinations, but the way they reach their destination could be very creative, could be very different, as long as the students can be at their level best to reach the destination at their own potential. So that is all about compassionate pedagogy. All right, so shift to gas. Yes, this brings us an important mindset shift. So sometimes when a student behave differently from what we expect, our first question is, what is wrong with the students? Yeah, so with my background, this is my 19 years as academicians. I never have any other job. So I am lecturers or academics all this while, 19 years. So to be very frank, for my very beginning, I won't say beginning, maybe for the first 10 years, when the students behave differently, yes, exactly. The first question is, what is wrong with the student? But the saddest thing is, it always happens among educators, especially if we share in the same office. We will discuss about the students, and the nice thing never goes there is because maybe we are not exposed with this compassionate pedagogy, or we don't really have knowledge about the special needs or special attentions that we can provide. Then we are discussing about the students. So what is wrong with these students? So usually this wrong coming with participation. So we will ask, why doesn't this students participate? Why doesn't this student look at me when I'm actually speaking? Or why the student never answer my question when I'm asking the question to them? So I will be very angry and I will be triggered because I will think that this is not a good attitude, isn't it? And then maybe I will think about why doesn't this student work well in the group, always get complaint from their teammate, and why does this student keep asking for clarification? Over time, maybe 1 week, need to see you almost every day to ask you almost for the same question or same instruction. So all these are actually making educators feel very frustrated, and then we might have a very negative stereotype towards the students. So, but compassionate pedagogy invite us to ask a different question. Still asking the question. We are not asking you to be kind, but we try to think critically. So what does that mean? Instead of asking what is wrong with this student, we can ask what is happening between this learner and the learning environment. So we can be curious at a time where they behave differently. So the small change in the question can completely change our response, because now we are not immediately locating the problem inside the students. So as you can see, we are becoming more curious. So maybe the instructions are unclear. Maybe why they keep asking us, because maybe the instructions that we give is not clear. Maybe the environment is overwhelming for the students, or maybe the student needs more processing time. Some different student, they will need different processing. I would say cycle or method. They are different, and maybe the student understand the content very well, but they have difficulty in expressing what they actually understand. So one simple sentence I would like you to remember today is that compassion begins. Most of the time we will ask about how we can actually perform compassion. So I can tell you, this is my experience. Compassion begins when judgment becomes curiosity. We don't judge first. We're being curious first. Because when we are curious, we are able to find out a lot of explanations or answers towards the curiosity. So that lead us to have an understanding towards the student rather than we judge them, we label them, or we sentence them to death like in that way. So remember, compassion just so easy that it begins at a point where we turn judgment into curiosity. So that is compassionate pedagogy. So before we label behavior, let us try to understand it, why they behave differently. All right. So many barriers are invisible. Most of the time, we thought that we can see it, we have experience, but over time, especially in new era, barriers are really invisible. So one challenge in higher education, I would say that this is the main challenge that I come across with. Uh, if you choose to ignore certain students with differences, then it wouldn't be your challenge. But of course, if you would like to fulfill your duty, not because you are just an educator, but you treat other people's kids like your own kids. Just like, one day, even we educators, okay, not to say we definitely will not have all our time on our own kids, but we are just hoping and praying that our kids are taken good care of a good teachers. So how we actually define good teachers. The only thing is, please do not give up on my kids, isn't it? So if let's say we are trying to take good care of those kids like our own kids, then definitely we will see this barrier, especially the invisible one, as our challenge. So, we may look at students and we think that the students, everything is fine, especially if you are being educated, you know what I'm talking about. We will ask, do you understand what I'm teaching? Yes, yes. They will definitely tell you yes, yes. Some are very excited, some they are very quietly telling you yes. So, but the fact is, whether yes or no, uh, we might not know until we really have an assessment or we ask them on the spot, isn't it? But have so many things to actually take good care of before we really ask or before we really assess the student. All right. So, when we look at the student and we think that they are fine, first thing first, we might not see how much effort the student is actually using simply to function in our learning environment. Maybe to us, or maybe we used to say when we were at your age, this is so simple and we do it in this way. Maybe the environment is not friendly, but we still can do it very well. But all humankind are not the same. We are not using the same way or same energy level to actually face the environment. So some students, they might use a lot of efforts in order to just function as what we do. So let me highlight three examples over here. As you can see, the first is actually hidden curriculum. So what does that mean? That means university contain many unwritten rules. So for example, how should I email my lecturer? Now, oftentimes, there are certain kids, especially nowadays, they would just submit the assignment. just attach the assignment without saying anything in the email or even in the subject line. Then you just send to you. And we have a hot discussion among academics or when they go to interns. We got this feedback from the managers. This student is being rude because they don't address people, they don't greet people. But who actually tells them to do that? Most of the time. So this is unwritten rules. Yes, it is common sense. We use common sense to impose on our students. But who actually tell them? Because not everybody has the same energy level to understand this unwritten rules. And then what is it acceptable to ask for an extension? Some student, okay, you're fine. Yeah, I understand you. But some, you know, some they are not, they're just saying that you are just being lazy. Yeah, you are just being asking a lot of take things for granted. So they are not, they do not understand what is right to ask for extension, what is not right when they really want to ask for an extensions. And what does the lecturer really mean by critical discussion? Critical seems something complicated, but students have different level of processing. So what are you talking about? And how should I contribute during group work? They might not know. Should they be the leader or should they just be quiet so that people, I mean, those alpha type of students, they don't really dislike them? They do not know. Okay, and what exactly does good participation look like? Do they need to talk a lot of things, or do they need to lead, or do they need to do a lot of works? I think even now we are in a one group also, we need to try to understand our partner. The worst thing is if the group is even bigger, so that we have a good grasp of our group dynamic so that we know how we actually can contribute or mingle around, isn't it? So what about our kids? They are so young, yet they do not have a very much experience on that, isn't it? So many of us learn things, informally. We have our informal way of past experience. So, but not every student find this unwritten rule easy to understand. All right. So they might be very stressed and they will tell you that they want to give up, they want to withdraw, they want to stay away from this. It's not for, it's not just for fun, it's for a reason. But all this can only find out through curiosity. All right, and the second one is masking. So some students may spend a great deal of energy trying to appear the way they think others would accept them. Okay, so they may hide their discomfort. They may suppress natural way of regulating themselves. The new the I would say the natural, the ordinary way, but they worried that they will be criticized. They will be having a lot of bad discussions behind them. So they may also force themselves to behave in ways that look socially acceptable. So from outside, we might think, this student seems okay, but internally, the student may be exhausted. So I remember that my lecturers previously when I was studying counseling, so he actually pointed out one scenario where we see a lot of adolescents, students, even young adults when they commit suicide. Oftentimes we look at newspapers, how people describe them. They are good kids. They are very obedient. They have a very good academics profile. They have a lot of things that we feel so heavy to let these people go because they are so kind, so nice, so well. Yeah, I mean every way that you can actually describe the students. But the fact is, are they actually trying to masking as well because they behave in a way that uh we call good boys or obedient kids. So they're trying to be someone that we label them as good. But the thing is, are they living in their own way? So oftentimes we never hear that those people like gangsters or those people who are very disobedient, repulsive, they go to commit suicide. Why? Because they are just being themselves. They voice out who they are. They just let their emotions go. Yeah, I'm not saying that this is good, but of course, I just want to say masking is very dangerous because they behave in a way that we think this is good and we always feel comfortable and we feel happy that because they always listen to us. But most of the time, we have a questions to the student or to the kids is that do they really live out of themselves or they live in a way that we like? This is very important question that we can think about. And the third is about past experience. So some students come to university after many years of being corrected, or being judged, or being misunderstood, or told that the way they behave is somehow wrong. So when they enter our classroom, they are not entering as a blank page, So they bring previous experiences with them. So this is why what looks like disengagement may sometimes be something very different. So it could be, to us, it may be disengaged. They are not interested in our class, or maybe they are just being rude, but that's not the fact. Maybe it could be overloaded, it could be uncertainty when they learn. It could be anxiety. So, or it may be form of self-protections when when they behave in a way that it is different from other students. So again, the key message is do not assume too quickly if we see them being different. So these are the barriers that we cannot see. So you see, whether it is curriculums, that unwritten rules, or whether it's masking behave in a way that we like, or past experience, they just behave as they are told to be like this so that they can continuously survive. So they would behave differently. And please, all educator like me, we do not have to assume too fast. We can actually be curious and try to find out what is going on with the student, try to understand, what they have actually gone through. All right. So now, when we want to understand, then we talk about communications, right? So when they often talk about autistic students having communication difficulty, and we always listen this in university, in industry, and in a lot, I would say in society. But there's another way of looking at this. Communication difficulty is not always a one-sided problem located inside the student. We might think that, yeah, like me, I'm a lecturer with 18 years of teaching experience, so I have no communication issue. If there is, it was, it could happen in a very long time ago. It's not, no need to be today. But that's not the facts, because sometimes two people simply experience, interpret, and communicate the world differently. Because what you look at your angle will not be the same as my angle. But I keep on insisting what I see, and the student keep on insisting as well. There's no way for communication. So we may say something and believe that my meaning is very, very clear. I thought that I passed my message down very clear. I express it very, very clear. But the student may understand it differently. When you say something like this, how the student understand it is not out within our control. So the student may communicate something in a way that makes perfect sense to them, but we may interpret it differently. So I mean the same thing goes to us. So when we say something, we thought that it's clear, but interpretation can be different from other side. So when they make sense to them, it comes to us, it could be another thing when we interpret it. So understanding has to go both ways. It's not only one way. So the idea is connected to what we sometimes call as the double empathy problems. All right. So for today's purposes, we do not need to remember the terminology. It's not important. We are not in the lectures, but the important message over here is that communication is a shared responsibility. So as educator, there are some, I would say, very simple things that we can do. So first of all, if we want to be very clear, we make our expectation explicit. That means make it very simple, direct, and clear. All right. And we use direct but respectful language. Direct, that doesn't mean that you can just uh, bloom or express your emotion just like that. But respectful language, and provide more than one way for students to respond. Because nowadays, different students, they will use different ways. And then oftentimes we will say that, yeah, they are ready, they have to go to work very soon, so they have to comply with what the, employers needs. So there's not so many alternative prepare for students. Yes, I do understand that. But the thing is, if the student do not even learn from you, they do not even have the fundamental knowledge. So how would they learn further when they go to work? And the second thing is, when we do not build a good connection with our students, we lost the chance to teach our own students because we do not have a bridge to connect with them so that we can guide them appropriately and effectively. So once we lost connections, no matter how good we are, how good our philosophy is, it is wasted, isn't it? So we need to really bridge the students in terms of learning. We can provide them different alternatives. We can provide them different means so that they understand, process, learn, and perform. There you go. You can guide them further how they can twist a bit so that they can fit into the society or I would say industry. All right. And then we can provide I would say understanding in terms of our usually I what I want to say is that once we make ourselves very clear, we can actually provide room for them to talk. That is what I want to highlight because once we make ourselves clear, how about interpretation the other side? We can actually perform active listening. This is simply to understand, very easy, but very hard to do it, especially if we know the students very well. Can we let the student talk without, replying back or stopping them and saying what we say? Mm, It's not easy, isn't it? Unless today, like let's say I'm a counselor, I do not know my client, I can do that. But if today we can try to practice with our students when they have so much to say, we just shows our interest and curiosity to understand the students. When they say anything, we just need to provide minimum encouragement. Yes. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, please tell me more. Something like that. So we try to, we let them talk and we show interest and they are happily to talk. From there, that's one goal that I would like to highlight. We understand their world. We understand their interpretation. And then that is called both way of communication. We make ourselves clear. We understand what they actually understand. Okay. But the thing is, we do not stop them from talking. Even it might be a nonsense for you, but remember what I say. Just post your curiosity towards the students. That's interesting. Why you think that way? What could lead you to this extent? You can always ask them. Okay, and they will tell you how they think, and sometimes it can open your mind, it can blow your mind because they can think something very differently, which actually lift you up to another level. All right. So some students may express themselves very well in writing, even if spontaneous verbal communication is very difficult for them. So some is very good in writing, some is very good in verbally. So rather than deciding that they are poor communicator, we can always ask what communication channel allowed this student to show me what they actually know. So we want to assess them, we want to know. So if we allow to, we try to find different ways that they can actually perform beautifully. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. It's not only about assessment, but maybe in terms of class, in terms of maybe we can open up at the same time different way for them to express themselves, and they feel safe to do so, and they will start to learn, engage, and they will like your classes. All right. And then another important part is compassionate pedagogy is safety. So when I say about safety, I'm not only talking about physical safety. So I'm talking about psychological safety. Yeah. So let us look at the left hand side. So when students experience fear, overload, uncertainty, or public embarrassment, a large amount of their attention is being used to manage that threat. Uh, so when they know, and usually they know because at that age they already gone through a lot, they know they are different. And every day, from the moment they open their eyes, they aware that people are looking at them, judging at them, discuss at them. They need to manage this kind of stress, threats with a high energy level. Just imagine all of us, at this stage, every day when we walk out from our home, we are being judged, we are being discussed, we are being treated differently. We don't even have to do anything. We already feel very exhausted. What about kids? Isn't it? So imagine a student sitting in class thinking, is the lecturer going to suddenly call my name? Am I going to say something wrong? Or everyone is actually looking at me? So I don't understand that instruction, but I'm afraid to ask because maybe my friend will say that this is stupid questions. So it becomes very difficult to focus deeply, on learning when your mind is occupied by all these concerns. So now compare with the right hand side. So what make them feel safe? Clarity, okay, predictability, respect, and supportive challenge. So this condition do not make learning easier. It does not make learning easy in any sense, but they make learning safer. So when students feel safer, they have more capacity to think. They could ask questions, they make mistakes, and they could try again because they feel safe, right? So this is another sentence that I hope everyone can remember. Psychological safety is not separate from learning. All right, it creates the condition for learning. All right, so remember about this. Safety is very important when we make our instruction clear, when we make our class routine predictable, when we conduct our class full with respect, when we posted challenges but with support, and then they will feel that they are safe because they, let's say we imagine we are the kids, but we are very clear about what the educator or the lecturers want. Yeah, I know what's going to be happening in the class next. Then I feel that, oh, even I did a mistake, my lecturer respect me very well. They say, good try, I appreciate your try. And then when they have challenge, they will say, okay, what you need, you just let me know, I supply you, you just try with no worries. You see, even we, as an adults, we also can feel safe to learn. What about our kids? So that is empathy. All right. So this is very important. How we put this compassionate pedagogy in practice. So this is actually I make it simple way to understand. In fact, if you come from the scholars, it is only in a 4 dimensions. But I find the last one, whole person, is very difficult to understand. So I actually break it down, still the same framework, but I break it down to easy to understand to be 5 steps. So you can understand it as C, understand, design, support, and flourish. So first, let's go to C. Notice the learner and notice the barrier. That is about compassionate pedagogy starting point. We look at the learner. Okay, that means we notice, okay, we have this learner, maybe learning differently, and what are the barriers? Okay, so something is happening. Maybe the students have stopped participating, or maybe the student keep missing, I would say certain instructions, all right? And maybe a particular assessment is creating unusual difficult. So do not ignore this signal. Yeah, we notice them. So what we need to do next, we need to understand them. So before making a judgment towards these students, we try to understand what may be happening. All right. So we can ask the student. After asking, please do not continue with your own answer. This is our own habit as a academics. Sometimes, especially if the student is not answering us, then we will start to answer by ourselves. We listen. After we listen, we can even clarify. Okay, thank you for telling me. So what I understand from you is that so and so and so. Am I right? Because like what I mentioned, double empathy, isn't it? So I try to understand you. I ask and I listen. Then after that, I clarify what I understand from you is right or not. So that is clarification. So do not immediately assume laziness. We don't assume them lack of interest or poor attitude right away. So we need to understand them. Then after understand them, what we need to do next? That's the core part, design. Ask whether there's an unnecessary obstacle in the learning environment that we actually can change. Any things that hinder them from learning or progressing that we can actually change. For example, can the instruction be clearer? Sometimes we might not be clear, and then students are very confused about what we want. And then can we structure the group task better so that they know how to actually perform the task? Can we provide material earlier, okay, so that they can actually get it earlier? And then can we create another way to participate? That means there's not only one way, but we have different way for them to achieve the learning outcome. So this is something that very simple. This is like the design that we can impose like just right away, starting from tomorrow. Clear instructions, good structure of tasks, providing material earlier, and then different way of participation. Then after that, After the design, of course, we are not stopping there. So we need to support. Number 4. So support students to assess the learning and participate meaningfully. So support does not mean doing the work for them. So it means giving them a fair opportunity to do the work themselves. That means what they need, then we provide them so that they can assess the learning. We do not support them in a way where we try to lessen the learning effort. No, but we try to equip what they need in order to learn. Yeah, so that is about support. And the last one is flourish. So our goal should not only be helping students survive university. So we talk about sustainability. So we want them to develop. We want them to recognize their strengths. We want them to build confidence and capability, especially after graduation. So the process moves from seeing the learner and enabling them to flourish. We see them up to they can flourish. So if you remember nothing else from this model, just remember those 5 words. So it applies anywhere. We see, that means we notice our students, we understand them why they behave in such a way. We try to design while we're still maintaining our academic standard. We design in a way where it can make things, not to say easier, but it can make things meaningfully for them to assess. Then we support them in any way so that they can assess the learning easily, and they can actually develop. They can be who they are even in a better way after the graduation. That is the I would say sustainably in terms of compassionate pedagogy. All right. So, from accommodations to design. So, this is actually another important shift. So, traditionally, many universities use a reactive approach. So that means student struggles, then the students need to ask for help. Sometimes the student needs documentation or proof, or we make an individual adjustment. So that is the reactive way. So, of course, individual accommodation are sometimes necessary and very important. But compassionate pedagogy asks another question. Can we design some flexibility from the beginning? That means we don't have to wait until the problem arises. So instead of waiting students to experience difficulty, can we anticipate common barrier? For example, if providing clearer instructions benefit everybody, why wait for one student to request them? If we already know that it works. If sharing materials slightly earlier helps students to prepare, why make it available only as a special accommodation? Why we know that supplying the material earlier is better, but still why don't we do that? If different participation channels still allow us to achieve the same learning outcome, why provide only one way? I know it's easy, but if let's say we really hope that whatever that we share, we deliver, it is actually learned by the students, why we are waiting only for one options? So this is the difference between constantly reacting to difficulty and proactively design for diversity. So remember about that. We don't just respond to difficulty or problems, but we can actually proactively design our work so that problem doesn't even have the chance to arise in front of us. And this does not only benefit to neurodivergent student. Okay, very often it improves teaching for everyone. So compassionate pedagogy asks us to design before students are forced to struggle. It teaches us to design appropriately. We don't even have to see any problem after this. All right. So this leads naturally to universal design for learning, or we call it as UDL. So that is something that common, especially among teachers. So UDL can sound complicated when we first hear the terminology. Okay, but I want to explain it in the simplest way as possible. So think about 3 questions only. So first, what? How do students receive the information? That means what information? do we do we really rely on spoken explanations, or can we combine spoken explanation with slides, diagrams, examples, captions, or short summaries? Yeah, so that is about what we can do. Second, how we can do it. How can students show us what they have learned? So does it always have to be one single format depending on the learning outcome? So could students sometimes demonstrate learning through written work, or Can it be through oral explanations, recorded presentations, visual work, or a project? So that is method. How? And third is why. How do we support engagement? So can students see the purpose of what they are learning? So that is why they are learning. Can we provide structure, relevance, appropriate choices, and opportunity for reflection? Reflection for them to think why they need to learn about this and what is it so useful for them. So UDL is not about adding lots of extra things to our course. It's not about this. It is not about decoration, of course. I would describe it as a very simple way: plan flexibility. We think about learner diversity before the difficulty happens. So that means we build flexibility into our learning through this three-way. What actually needed, all right? In what form? How? That means what kind of method for the student to show they are actually learning, and why. We let the student know why they need to learn this and how is it useful for them when once they have this knowledge. So that could be very meaningful in terms of teaching and learning, right? And then another part of compassionate pedagogy is changing the way we look at students. So when we talk about neurodivergent students, conversation often focus on difficulties. Most of the time we talk about this, they will say, oh, then some they do not understand about this. They will think that they are going to be very harmful. They will beat people down, then they will commit suicide, this thing is that. But most of the time this is a very negative stereotype. So why, most of and other than that, we will think about what they can do, what can the student do, what problem does the student have, and then what support does the student need. We always discuss that, and the support question is actually very important. But now today we come to compassionate pedagogy. We ask another question: what strength can these students bring? You know, so the second question changes the conversation. So a student may have deep focus, so strong pattern recognition, for example, and then excellent attentions to detail, and then original thinking, and they are very honesty, or very strong interest and knowledge, in particular areas. So, of course, not every autistic or neurodivergent person has the same strength. We should never stereotype. So, the point is simply that we should not allow difficulty in one area to define the whole person. So, instead of asking, what support does this student need? We always want to support this student. It seems like they are, they need help. They are in a disadvantaged situation. We actually should ask, what strengths can these students bring? We change the way we look at the student, isn't it? So compassionate pedagogy is not only about helping students cope, it's also about helping students recognize and develop their potential. So what they are good at, bring out of them. We cherish them. We actually develop them. We build them together with capacity and confidence. And they can be great, can be at their greatest level persons as they could, because you develop them as a person and you act as an educators. All right. So now let us become very practical. What can we actually do? So let us let us start all this before the class begins. One simple practice is to share slides earlier, key terminology or reading guidance when it is possible. We do it earlier. Why is that so? Because some students benefit from seeing the material before they need to process it live, because they need processing time. We thought that it's okay. You can listen to me first when I'm teaching that only I supply you notes. Okay, it is not wrong, but not all students have the same way of study. So some students they can do it concurrently. Some students they need to process it before they really can really listen to you. And another simple practice is making learning outcome and task very clear. This is very important. Tell students what they are expected to do. Very clear, direct, and respectful way. Avoid making them guess. All right. For assignment, example can be extremely useful. Tell them, okay, what we want, for example, this and that. And if possible, show them what good works looks like so that they have an idea what to struggle with this thing, so that they can really, I would say, empty their cup to learn from you. because they don't have to. This is the unnecessary barrier, I would say. And another helpful practice is having a reasonably predictable class structure. So, for example, we begin with a short overview, right? For example, then we can explain about the concept, we can have activity, then we can summarize. So when students know what is coming, they can use more of their mental energy for learning instead of constantly trying to predict what will happen next, so that the level of anxiety being called, or whether they should ask this or that question, is no longer there. Why? Because they already, I mean, your class is predictable, then they can actually focus. Yeah, the mental energy can be less exhaustions, and then they can focus better. All right. So the key words over here is that clarity and predictability. So once you make it clear and predictable about your classes, then the student no need to be so struggles or having a high mental energy, yeah, to go through your class. And sometimes a small amount of preparation from us can prevent a large amount of distress from the learner. So we just do a little bit, then it helps a lot for our students. All right. So during class, one very simple practice is giving students a little processing time after we ask a question. So as lecturers, silence can feel uncomfortable, especially we ask questions. So we ask a question and nobody answer us for 3 seconds, for example, then immediately we will answer our own questions, isn't it? So because we feel awkward when there's no question, no answers, or no one's talking. But some students are still processing what we ask. Same like you, maybe you are still processing what I say. So sometimes a few extra seconds can make a big difference. So we can also provide different ways to respond, you see. So speaking is only one option. So if you go and you realize, notice the learner having different needs, or maybe even you don't notice it, but you prepare earlier, then we may actually use writing, chat or sticky notes or online forms. Let them have a walk, or maybe agree or not agree, just stand up everybody. So if you agree, go to left hand side. If you do not, then you go to right hand side. So if you think where you are now, just go and stick the sticky notes on the quadrants that we have drawn earlier, or something like that. Or maybe we can use Canva, ask them to choose their sticky notes and then to write down what they say. Ah, so you see, when you have this different combinations, they are participating, they are learning, they are achieving the learning outcome. So this is we call different way of doing things. So especially in an online environment today, like just what we're having now, the chat function itself can be a very useful participation. And another point is that do not polish harmless differences unnecessarily. Okay, that means we don't go and focus, or we do not go and make deal of those unnecessary, we call what we unnecessary differences, so big deal. That means, like, for example, if let's say the student is not looking at us, then we call the student, what are you actually doing? You are not looking at me. Or student may do though, or may the student very quiet, then you start to target the student to ask questions and all this. So this is called polish harmless differences unnecessarily, because they are different, but we make it as a focus, and then this could be very harmful for the students. And it does not automatically mean disengagement if they behave differently. So we should be careful about measuring participation only by confidence and visibility. So that is our traditional way. So if the student seems confident, if the student's visible in front of us, then the student is engaged and participative. But that is not the way of measuring participation. So a student who speaks frequently is not necessarily learning more than student who is quietly thinking. So I like the standard on this slide is that participation should show learning, not only confidence. We should show learning. That means participation should be measured in terms of learning. And learning can be measured in terms of different options. Like what I mentioned, it could be from speaking, it could be, from chats, it could be from, sticky notes, or they could be in the online forms. Anything that we can think of, then we actually, we bring options for them to do. Yeah, apparently it seems like we have more works to do, but sometimes we just think about it, how much time it is needed. is actually not much. But reading your students' work and treating every single of them, who is so unique, like your own kids, I think it is worthwhile, isn't it? Because they are special because they are unique. They are not they are irreplaceable. Everyone, every kids is I would say the super important asset to every parents. So goes to you, goes to me. So they deserve that. They deserve our care, love, and accommodations. All right. Right. So assessment is another area where compassionate pedagogy become very practical. So the first principle I would say about clarity. This is very important, yeah. So we can use clear rubrics, use milestone when appropriate, and we provide examples. And sometimes lecturers know exactly what it's look like because we have been in academia for many years. But students do not automatically know what we know. So make the expectation visible. All right. So remember about this. Sometimes we make it clear, we thought it is clear, but it is not clear when they first join university or our class because they are not us. So we need to bring ourselves down to the level, just like when we talk to child at 2 or 3 years old, very naturally, we will not just stand there, to talk, and then we try to bring ourselves at that level, and even our voices also will turn to at their level, to try to talk to them. What is this? Have you eaten? So this food nice or not? Why we will talk like that? Because we bring ourselves to their level. But why not when it brings to our own students? Because they are not the lecturers. If they are as good as us, then university might not need us anymore, isn't it? So they are here because they need guidance. And we are here because we are providing guidance. So we don't count it as overwhelm us, but we count it as something that is a gift from the God that we can do and serve the people, right? And the second expectation is actually visible. I would say feedback. So feedback should be very specific and respectful. And then we don't just scold the students while we are providing feedback. We try to understand why they do not understand what we say and forward looking. Okay, not only this is weak, but this part we can tell that this part needs stronger evidence. Here is what we can do about it, to improve about it. So we give a feedback while we can provide even motivation. And then maybe you think that this is too tedious to do so. But once you perform this and you do this, definitely it will apply to people surrounds you. It could be applied to your own kids, to your parents, to your colleagues, because the way you bring yourself whenever you look at a situations, that's come together with motivation because you already get used to it, right? Maybe at first it's very, people will call it as a very fake. It is not natural, but once you do it for long, yeah, as a habit, then it becomes something very motivational. And people like to talk to you, right? And the third area is communication. Students should have actually safe way to ask questions, and ideally, we want them to ask questions early before a small misunderstanding become a large academic problems. So now there's important issues here is that fairness. This is a lot of teachers or lecturers talking about that. Sometimes we think fairness means treating everybody exactly the same. But equal treatment does not always create equal access. I would like to say nowadays the world is different, especially the learning environment. So I would describe fairness in this way based on my experience. Fairness means helping students assess learning equally, okay? Assess learning and demonstrate achievement meaningfully. It's not about I give you 10, I should give another 10, even though 10 is not good or not suitable for that learner. Then that is their problem. They should find tuition or they should find their own way. That's not fair. So fair means whatever learning that I prepare for you, I should make everybody or I should make sure everybody have the equal accessibility so that they will demonstrate achievement meaningfully. That is what I understand and my philosophy. So the standard can remain consistent even when the pathway or support are not identical. So the standard is still there, but the pathway to pursue the standard could be very creative. All right. So now, I would like to, us to apply this to a simple situation. Imagine there's a students, and these students avoid eye contact, rarely speaking in the class, and become anxious during spontaneous group discussion. A very quick interpretations might be, why won't this student engage? Isn't it? We will ask in that sense. But based on everything we have discussed today, I want us to change this question. We can change as, why might make engagement safer, clearer, or more accessible. So how to make it even safer, clearer, accessible. So I would like to give everyone, about this thought. I have no time for you to type in the chat box, but if you like to, you may do so. If you are comfortable, you can type your idea into the chat here. So think about these students. If you really have this student in your class, okay, or your own kids. So what is one thing that you might change in your teaching approach? It could be the way you organize the group of activity, or like what I mentioned earlier, it could be the way you ask questions. It could be the communication channels. It could be simply giving the student more preparation time. There's no need for a perfect answer, actually. Just think about what compassionate pedagogy might look like in these situations, right? Yeah. So what you can think of. If let's say you have to just do one thing, is it clearer? Or is it giving time? Or is it communicate? Or is it us listen and clarify? Or is it we have different options for them to post their response? That is all about pedagogy methods, or I would say options that we have. All right. Sorry, due to time, yeah, it's 12:04. So what I want us to notice is that we are no longer asking how we can force the student behave like everybody else. This is very old time already. We are asking about how we can create meaningful participations while still achieving the learning outcome, how we can create meaningful participation. Remember, we try to make everyone participate because we have a philosophy is that students are here to learn, are not here to create problem. So we need to be creative at the same time to be accommodative. What else that we can do so that they can participate, so that everybody achieve the learning outcome. So this is a very different starting point today. All right. So almost there. As we come towards the end, I do not want compassionate pedagogy to remain only an interesting idea. So I want us to live with things that we can actually do. So here are just very simple 6 practices. So number one, share material early when possible. Okay, try find a way. Number two, explain tasks using simple and explicit language. Number three, give students some processing time before expecting an answer. Silent is gold, okay, and sometimes silent is good. That means your student is processing. Number four, offer more than one appropriate way to participate. And number five, avoid unnecessary public embarrassment for behavior policy. If you really want to talk to the students, you can find a place where it is actually respectful and harmless to the student, or I would say for the student to feel safe to open up himself or herself. Okay. Okay, and number six is that I would say the simplest one out of all. Ask student what helps them learn, what is good for them. Then we can think of how we can incorporate this if we are able to do that. Okay, so sometimes we spend a lot of time trying to guess what student needs. This is time, we try to guess, discuss behind them, and sometimes we can simply ask them, what helps you participate, you know and then, is there anything else about this task that is unclear? Ask them, what would you make this activity more manageable, so that we know what we provide is good for them. Most of the time we thought that this is the best for the students, but the thing is, we are not them. We do not know what is good for them, isn't it? So the only way, it is so simple, just asking and listening and practicing. Then things could be very different. And of course, we may not always be able to provide everything students request, of course, but compassionate pedagogy does not mean saying yes to everything. It's not, compassionate is not being kind at everything, yes, man, no. But we can listen, we can explain, we can negotiate support that we can provide, and we can make intentional decisions. So the most important point is that compassionate pedagogy usually grows through small, consistent decision. That means, what we have gone through with the students, one step at one time. And then when we build the connections, we guide them. And then from there, we discipline them and they have trust with us. They have the fundamental way of doing things and they have the knowledge to build up. Now, there we go. They are actually, they can, I'll say, achieving what they wish to achieve by themselves. Because from very small or consistent decisions through the collaborations between lecturers and students. So you do not have to redesign your entire program tomorrow. Start with one practice, then another, just one. And gradually, the culture of learning environment begins to change. Just one. Clarity. After that, send earlier. After that, ask question. After that, accommodate or something like that. So once at a time. All right. So before we finish, I want to leave you with one question. Okay, not 10 things, just one. So, what is one thing you could change in your teaching today to make learning more compassionate? So, as you can see, compassionate here is that we try to understand what they need and we try to redesign what we can, but redesign for the pathway to achieve the learning outcome, not redesign the curriculum. You get what I mean? So the pedagogy here is so beautiful, where the way or the option or the alternative to achieve the learning outcome could be so creative and could be so meaningful for our kids because they inspire us. Their learning differences inspire us to have creativity in terms of delivering. So maybe it is giving clearer instruction, like what I mentioned, allowing a little more processing time, or reconsidering how you interpret quiet students, or looking at your assessment instruction again, or simply asking students what helps them learn, or whatever it is, start from small, start from one step because compassionate pedagogy is not about becoming a perfect educator overnight, and there's no perfection anyway. It is about becoming an intentional educator. So, an educator who notice, who try to understand, who design thoughtfully, and then who support learning, and who want students not simply to survive higher education, but to flourish within it. So, this is something that I would say very beautiful because not only student grow, but the educator, develops and grows and flourishes as well because the student success is the teacher success. So I want to close with this idea at the bottom of the slide is that inclusive design for some can become better education for all. Many of the practices that support autistic and neurodivergent students, such as clearer instructions, like I mentioned, predictable structure, respectful communications, and flexible participations, can actually improve learning for many other students as well. So, compassionate pedagogy is not only about a particular group of students. Ultimately, it asks us a much larger question. What kind of learning environment are we creating for human beings who enter our classroom? So thank you very much for your time and for being part of this conversation. So I really hope that today's sessions have given you not only something to think about, but also something practical that you can take back into your own teaching. So thank you, and I'm very happy to hear if there's any Q&A from the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Teoh. What a beautiful sharing. I think one thing amazing is how Dr. Teoh make this concept very clear, very grounded. And I think personally, I'm also very inspired on how I can improve my teaching by considering those tips that you share. So really thankful to Dr. Teoh here for
Thank
this
you, Dr. Loh.
very comprehensive presentation. So now we might have time. We are running a bit late now, but I think we can still take in one or two
Mm, mm.
questions. If anyone have any urgent questions, any? I also like that you say, oh, how compassionate pedagogy is something modern and not out of fashion. I like when you say that, oh, if you expect students to be the same, this is actually of old-fashioned thought. So I really like that quote. Yeah, I think it's very true. Oh, I think we have a question from Yemi.
Mm, mm.
Yemi, you would like to ask a question? Madam Yemi is the advisor of Aim High, which is the autistic support group in Malaysia. Yeah. So let me help Amy to unmute. Let me see if I could do that. Yemi, are you trying to unmute?
Yeah, cannot.
Yeah.
I unmute you already.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. So inspiring, like Dr. Low has said. Thank you, Dr. Teoh. I have just one question because a lot of the autistic adults struggle with group work, finding a group. Do you have a practical solution for that?
Okay. In fact, like what I mentioned, there's no one size fits all, but I do really come across with my own student who is autistic because there's a very attentions to detail very much. So when he really have a difficulty to find a group when it comes to assignment. So what I understand from him, he tell me is that okay, this happened and that, and then nobody actually really like that. Then what I can actually I ask him first, do you want me to help you in terms of talking to the group that you would like to join? Then what surprised me is the student say no, sir, I really hope that I can try my own. Then I say, okay, good, that's very good. So what could you offer if you think you are in the group? Then I say, I think I can be very attention to detail where normal people couldn't actually spot that. Then I say, okay, because it's an engineering project. So for example, you talk about this and that. I say, good. So can you try to approach the groups that you want to join by telling them your strengths? And then the students say, yeah, I can go and try. And then after that, he never come back to find me. Then one time I caught him on the in the corridor. Then I asked, what's actually going on? Then he told me that it's already in the group and they are very happy because those attention needed things they were just assigned to him. He likes the task he do, and the group member like to assign this task to them. So what I want to focus is that offer the strengths. They need to identify recognizing their strength and they need to express what they could actually offer. So from then, a teammate would appreciate them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dr. Teoh, for the sharing. I
Mm.
think it's important that we focus on the student's strength and also let students to advocate for their strength. Yeah. So, and also actually recently, because I was also in another workshop and we were also talking about this, actually, I think just like what Dr. Teoh say, no, even though we do not lower the standard, the learning outcome is the same, but the learning path doesn't need to be the same. So a lot of time, lecturer design group work is because one of the teaching objective is we want the student to be able to work collaboratively. But that is only one teaching objective. We still have another 2 to 3 teaching objective that we are measuring. So sometimes I would also take a rather different way that if the student is not comfortable to work with others, there's nothing wrong. He submit an individual assignment. I probably cannot rate him for collaborative work, but he still can be rated according to other teaching objectives that I have. No, so I think it shouldn't be said that you doesn't submit, then it's 0 mark. And I think that is a rather rigid point of us viewing as the assessment. So I like also how Dr. Teoh has saying that how we do the assessment, feedback, and this is really something that strengthens our practice of compassionate pedagogy. Okay. Thank you so much. So I think all participants actually stay until this very end. It shows that how inspiring your session has been. Yeah,
Thank you.
so we hope we can also have more webinar series like this, and we also hope that we can have more engagement, with the academicians and also the community to drive the move of supporting detection and support for autism community. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye. Oh yeah, remember to fill in the feedback form and you will receive an e-certificate after you submit the feedback form. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Teoh.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Low. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Roseanne.